She is receiving the Nobel Peace Prize for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. As the leader of the democratic forces in Venezuela, Maria Corina Machado is one of the most extraordinary examples of civilian courage in Latin America in recent times. Ms. Machado has been a key unifying figure in a political opposition that was once deeply divided, an opposition that found common ground in the demand for free election and representative government. This is precisely what lies at the heart of democracy, our shared willingness to defend the principles of popular rule, even though we disagree. At a time when democracy is under threat, it is more important than ever to defend this common ground. Venezuela has evolved from a relatively democratic and prosperous country to a brutal and authoritarian state that is now suffering a humanitarian and economic crisis. Most Venezuelans live in deep poverty, even as the few at the top enrich themselves. The violent machinery of the state is directed against its own population. Nearly 8 million people have left the country. The opposition has been systematically suppressed by means of election rigging, legal prosecution, and imprisonment. Venezuela's authoritarian regime makes political work extremely dangerous. As the founder of Sumate, an organization devoted to democratic development, Ms. Machado stood up for free and fair elections more than 20 years ago. As she said, it was a choice of ballots over bullets. In political office and in her service to organizations since then, Ms. Machado has spoken out for judicial independence, human rights, and popular representation. She has spent years working for the freedom of the Venezuelan people. Ahead of the election of 2024, Ms. Machado was the opposition's presidential candidate, but the regime blocked her candidacy. She then backed the representative of a different party, Edmundo González Urrutia, in the election. Hundreds of thousands of volunteers mobilized across political divides. They were trained as election observers to ensure a transparent and fair election. Despite the risk of harassment, arrest, and torture, citizens across the country held watch over the polling stations. They made sure the final tallies were documented before the regime could destroy ballots and lie about the outcome. The efforts of the collective opposition, both before and during the election, were innovative and brave, peaceful and democratic. The opposition received international support when its leaders publicized the vote counts that had been collected from the country's election districts, showing that the opposition had won by a clear margin. But the regime refused to accept the election result and clung to power. Democracy is a precondition for lasting peace. However, we live in a world where democracy is in retreat, where more and more authoritarian regimes are challenging norms and resorting to violence. The Venezuelan regime's rigid hold on power and its repression of its population are not unique in the world. We see the same trends globally. Rule of law abused by those in control. Free media silenced.
The winner of the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize is Maria Corina Machado, who is the Venezuelan opposition leader, has been waging a lonely struggle for the better part of more than 10 years now against the authoritarian regime of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. She's, of course, been contesting elections, tried to contest elections for a number of years now. She, in fact, joined active politics in 2012. She was elected as a member of the Venezuelan National Assembly back in 2011. She entered politics back in 2002, and for the last 20 plus years, she has been taking on the authoritarian regime, first of Hugo Chavez, and then subsequently from 2013 onwards, the regime of the current president, Nicolas Maduro. In fact, she was also listed as one of the most influential women in the world, most influential 100 women in the world by BBC, as well as Time magazine earlier. She's of course one of the leading lights. Just even last year, when there was the Venezuelan election, the main opposition candidate was disqualified. That candidate was supposed to be the one that was the consensus candidate decided by her. So she has been waving the flag of democracy and human rights and civil rights in Venezuela for the better part of the last 20 years. I want to go across to our Sanjay Suri. So for Donald Trump, it's heartbreak. Once again, disappointment, some would reckon. But this was unexpected line, Sanjay, that the deadline on January 31, 2025, and Trump really didn't have much to speak of in those 10 days that he was in office. But how do you think he's going to react? Because he's been talking about this for a number of months now.
Well, certainly Trump, as we know, is not shy of speaking of his own virtues and of his immense qualifications for this job. But Machado clearly is the natural and the correct choice. There is no doubt about that. In fact, she has made common cause, in a sense, with Trump against Maduro, but that will be no consolation to Trump. For Trump, it was to be him. That is the issue of the technicality, the 31st January deadline that you point to. But there is more to this. For a start, the very active campaign that Trump launched on his own behalf perhaps didn't quite work for him, because we've had members of the Nobel Committee saying they don't like this sort of thing. They don't like promotional campaigns for that award. Besides, there are other questions. The Gaza Accord is just about getting into place. We don't know whether this peace is going to hold and it's going to last. There are fears and misgivings on all sides, so perhaps too early on that front. And besides, there have been a couple of other matters that could be in the way and would have stood in the way, perhaps. The bombing of Iran and the nuclear facility there, then the attacks on the boats coming out of Venezuela are not exactly qualifications for a Nobel Peace Prize, and no doubt those considerations would have weighed upon the committee as well.
I also want to go across to Ambassador Sajjan Har, who's joining us. It's an interesting choice because she has been the face of the political opposition in Venezuela for at least the last couple of decades. And it comes at an interesting time, Ambassador, because the Trump administration has been attacking these Venezuelan drug boats. They've declared Maduro as a narco-terrorist, the head of a narco-drug cartel. And Machado has been talking in recent times that her life is under threat. She's virtually in hiding. In fact, her candidate last year in the elections last year had to be changed. Another candidate was added, and of course elections were rigged there in Venezuela at a time when it seems like the United States might be going to war with Venezuela. The fact that the main opposition leader there has been given the Nobel Peace Prize, what do you make of it, and what do you think Trump will now say to this decision?
Yeah, thank you very much, Zaka. I think Trump is going to be livid. He is going to be livid with rage. Because I think not only Trump himself, but the whole White House has really been building up, to the announcement of the Nobel Peace Prize. And this will come as a very rude shock as far as Trump is concerned. I think it will not be a rude shock to the world in general, because people did not, as you said correctly, people did not expect that Trump will be given this Nobel Peace Prize. Not only, what Sanjay has said in terms of his very active promotion of himself, and all the other reasons about his bombing the boats, carrying allegedly carrying drugs to Venezuela or bombing in Iran. But his otherwise, the fact that as far as all the multilateral institutions are concerned, he has shown scant respect and regard for those. His move out of climate change, and as far as the Scandinavian countries are concerned, green energy is something very, very dear to them in terms of climate control, environmental protection. That is something very close to them. So, for all these reasons, I don't think any right-thinking person would have expected that that Trump would be able to get it. But then he has gone on and on ad nauseum about this. And anyone who's deserving, I think the world should stand up and applaud for him rather than he himself saying this. As far as the
Okay.
Gaza peace plan is concerned, if he'd hinged his hopes on that, Zaka, he did have a Gaza peace plan in January, just before he came, you would recall. On 19th of January, there was a ceasefire and there was exchange of some hostages. But that was supposed to be a three-phase peace plan, and it went nowhere. Now, I think the fact that Maria Machado has been the face of the Venezuelan opposition, that has been selected to be the winner of the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize. I think it's going to be very little consolation for Mr. Trump, although both of them are on the same side. Machado has been, as you said very correctly, fighting against Hugo Chavez, then Nicolas Maduro. But I don't think that's going to be any
All right, we've just lost that audio link with Ambassador Sajjan, but I think he had an absolutely fair point. She has been the leading opposition figure in Venezuela over the last 2 decades at least, and certainly in the last decade since Nicolas Maduro came to office in 2013. It is Maria Corina Machado who has been sort of leading the light of the opposition there, including in the elections, the presidential elections that happened there last year. She was supposed to be the candidate. She was initially the joint opposition candidate. She got disqualified. Another candidate got appointed in her place. And of course, that gentleman went on to lose the election. Of course, there were widespread allegations of rigging and the election being fixed, etc. And it comes at an interesting time. Like I said, the Trump administration has sent multiple U.S. naval assets to the South Caribbean Sea just off the coast of Venezuela when they are attacking these so-called drug boats, declaring Maduro as the head of a narco-drug cartel, a narco-terrorist. That's the word that Trump used at a time when Trump and Maria Corina Machado, are on the same side, wanting to remove Nicolas Maduro. An announcement such as this, the Peace Prize being announced, is something, whether it will unite them or whether it will divide them, we'll have to wait and see. You never can predict when it comes to Donald Trump. I'll get a final word from Sanjay Suri. So how do you expect this to play out, both in the White House, because, in the next couple of hours or so, we are going to get the first few reactions from the White House and from Trump himself. Expect a Truth Social post. Also, he's going to be going to the Middle East. I think he's going to Egypt to oversee the signing ceremony, which will sort of mark the phase 1 of this Israel-Hamas deal, the 20-point peace plan that Trump himself proposed and both parties have agreed to. It will seem quite a stark picture. You have Trump presiding over this big peace ceremony, this big ceasefire ceremony, ending a 2-year war, and the award going to someone else.
Well, he will no doubt project that as the real story, and he will consider the Nobel Committee's decision an aberration or a failure to recognize his greatness. And yet another war ended. Of course, there are questions about the other claims that he's made. The India-Pakistan claim certainly is contested. Also, the Congo war, that has seen a resurgence. So that's not quite settled. So the claims that Trump has been making, as often in shorthand, are less than accurate. In any case, we can expect certainly polite words of congratulations to Machado. She is, as you remind us all, on Trump's side in this. That's not going to be something that Trump is going to be focused on, but certainly she is the one. She's a brave woman. It is Gonzalez who formally won or was put up as the opposition candidate, but he's in exile. She has been in Venezuela and carrying on the opposition struggle. She is a remarkable woman. Quite rightly, the award went to her, and no doubt the White House will politely recognize that, while of course not doing a very good job of hiding its disappointment.
Okay, we'll await. We'll await Trump's reaction to this. In the meanwhile, thank you very much, Sanjay Suri and Ambassador Sajjan Har, for joining us. We'll take a quick break, but news and updates continue right on the other side. Disappointment for Donald Trump. No Nobel Peace Prize for him. The 2025 Nobel Peace Prize goes to Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Joined by an expert, Ashok Sharjnaj is here with us, former diplomat. So your first reaction, like Siddhant and I were discussing, it looks like India has come a long way from its engagement with Taliban 1 to Taliban 2.0.
No, absolutely. I very warmly welcome this development. I applaud the Government of India. I applaud the Ministry of External Affairs for the decision that has been taken. I think we have been moving very carefully, very cautiously, but very determinedly in a positive direction. I think this is the culmination for the time being. You know, it comes just short of the diplomatic recognition, but we are going to formally open an embassy. There will, as I understand, there will be no diplomatic recognition at this stage, but we will appoint a senior diplomat as the charge d'affaires there. And similarly, we will invite the Afghan Taliban dispensation also to open their embassy. So I think our cooperation in a wide variety of fields, depending upon what Afghanistan wants to work with India, which are the areas, but definitely in the area of training, education, business, visas, etc. I think that is going to be a very welcome development, and particularly if Afghanistan is also interested in security cooperation, I'm sure we will be quite prepared to give a positive consideration to that, because India and Afghanistan, as far as training of army personnel and soldiers that is concerned, has been long-standing, and we have our significant number of army personnel who are still in the Taliban forces.
Right.
So all in all, a very welcome development.
Okay.
And the government needs to be applauded for that.
So do you see this decision of Government of India only from the security prism, given the reality of a hostile neighbor in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and having a good relationship with whoever is in charge of Afghanistan is something that we need geostrategically? Is that only the reason, or there could be other factors as well? One being that India is heavily invested in infrastructure development of Afghanistan, and there's a need to protect those as well.
Well, you see, I think it is not only security. Security is a major element. Security is a very significant element, but I think there are elements beyond that also, because we need to recognize that India and Afghan, at the level of people, they have had very old, ancient, historical, civilizational links with each other. And you would recall that even after, Taliban came to power, and there was no, at that time we were very, very uncertain. There were no informal contacts even with the Taliban at that time. But we sent the 50,000 tons of wheat to them. We sent the large quantities of medicines, of vaccines, etc. So many things we sent, basically because and we made it very clear that it was for the people of Afghanistan. So I think at the people-to-people level, we have very strong linkages, and we want to nurture them.
But then, sir, I mean, once again, to bring back to the security question, IC-814 unfolded in the Afghan theatre. Yes, Taliban would argue that we did not have a direct role to play in the hijack, but it had unfolded there. The hijackers, as their second option, chose Afghanistan. Even after that, subsequently, there have been intel reports to suggest that Jaish-e-Mohammed cadre, Lashkar-e-Toiba cadre have gone to camps in Afghanistan and carried out training there. Even now in Kashmir, there are weapons from Afghanistan which are finding their way there. That's a security reality as well, isn't it?
Oh, it is a security reality, and that will be a subject of discussion between us and them. You know, once we have now a formalized sort of a relationship, then we will have this discussion and we will bring home to them. Because you see, Jaish and Lashkar, they were training there in the 1990s also. They were being received all the support, but today the realities, both regional and geopolitical realities, are very, very different. And we see there are reports even that Pakistan has bombed the TTP, installations in Afghanistan. So, that is very different from what it was earlier. So we really have to see the current realities, and we have to take cognizance and take our decisions accordingly.
And in the backdrop of Trump administration wanting Afghanistan to hand over the Bagram air base, how do you see India's engagements with Afghanistan in that context of US?
You see, Afghanistan is not at all keen to share that base with America. And you would have seen that in the Moscow format, we have sided completely with Afghanistan and a large number of other countries. That, the presence of foreign troops like this will only add more security problems and raise tensions in the region. So we have been very categorical, and we will continue to consult with Afghanistan from now onwards and see how we respond to this matter.
Right. So before I let you go, you heard the External Affairs Minister offering in terms of medical support, saying that India supports Afghanistan's independence, offering a joint cooperation as far as counter-terror is concerned. Overall, what could be the key takeaway from this engagement with Taliban that India has begun?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we have started talking to each other directly, and we are comfortable in this relationship. We are not furtively talking to each other and not, letting the world know about it. We are very cagey about it. We were very hesitant about it, but that hesitation is now behind us, and now we can engage directly and openly with each other. And I think there are huge possibilities of cooperation. Now, in fact, in terms of going through Chabahar, because earlier, after 2021, when Taliban took over, then the relevance and viability of Chabahar, in which Afghanistan played a very important role, that had come down, because then Chabahar could only give us access to Central Asia, not to Afghanistan. But now, since we are on equal footing with Afghanistan, with the Taliban dispensation there, so Chabahar also acquires that much of additional significance and relevance for us.
Right. Former diplomat Ashok Sajjanar, appreciate you taking time out and helping us understand what this engagement with Taliban really means. Siddhant, my colleague who tracks diplomacy, is still with me on the broadcast. Siddhant, we heard our External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, but when you heard the other side, when you heard the Taliban side, how was the Indian establishment analyzing? What is the key takeaway that Afghanistan led by Taliban has to offer?
Well, the key takeaways from today's meeting, Arunima, is that this is the first time that engagement is taking place with the Talibani government at a track 1 level in New Delhi, because earlier the meetings happened in Kabul, in Dubai, over telephone. But this is for the first time that India is hosting Afghan foreign minister, interim foreign minister. Perhaps it says a lot about the kind of importance now India has started, attaching to relations with the newly formed interim government in Afghanistan. Also, the focus is definitely going to be the security. And also, Arunima, in the opening remarks, CMS Jaishankar did mention that our Afghan government is keen in inviting the mining companies from India to mine in Afghanistan. Perhaps that's a big announcement.
Right.
And now Indian companies will also explore opportunities in Afghanistan. And as we were discussing before, Arunima, India has always been a builder. India has always built countries. India has always helped countries, in developing their infra projects, etc. Taking case of Afghanistan also, when the Talibani regime was removed and a civilian government was formed. Back in those days, also India did contributed a lot in building Afghanistan by building its parliament, the library, etc. This time around, also Afghan government, the Taliban government, is looking for same level of cooperation from the Indian side. Also, given there are big players in the region. America has its own interest in the region. China is expanding its area of interest. China is already present in Afghanistan, in mining sectors, the Bagram Air Base, etc., etc. In fact, China is the first big country to depute its ambassador in Afghanistan. So definitely, with the view of the balance of power, that is also something which the Afghan government is looking at this point in time, because to counter the expansion of China, the interest of America in the region, perhaps Afghanistan needs a reliable and trustworthy partner, and that partner could be no one else other than India. And
Siddhant, hold on. We have more.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Joined by an expert, Ashok Sharjnaj is here with us, former diplomat. So your first reaction, like Siddhant and I were discussing, it looks like India has come a long way from its engagement with Taliban 1 to Taliban 2.0.
No, absolutely. I very warmly welcome this development. I applaud the Government of India. I applaud the Ministry of External Affairs for the decision that has been taken. I think we have been moving very carefully, very cautiously, but very determinedly in a positive direction. And I think this is the culmination for the time being. It comes just short of the diplomatic recognition, but we are going to formally open an embassy. There will, as I understand, there will be no diplomatic recognition at this stage, but we will appoint a senior diplomat as the charge d'affaires there. And similarly, we will invite the Afghan Taliban dispensation also to open their embassy. So I think our cooperation in a wide variety of fields, depending upon what Afghanistan wants to work with India, which are the areas, but definitely in the area of training, education.
Good afternoon and a warm welcome. You're watching CNN News 18 with me, Griha Atul. Let's begin with the headlines at the top of 3 p.m. No Peace Prize for Donald Trump. Nobel Peace Prize has been awarded to Maria Corina Machado for her timeless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela. India upgrades Kabul mission to full embassy status after key Taliban meet between External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and Afghan Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi. India also expresses commitment to Afghanistan's sovereignty and integrity. Urged by Taliban ministers visit, Pakistan launches airstrikes in Kabul targeting Pak Taliban chief Nur Wali Masood survives, but son at 30 and other civilians killed. As many as 23 lives lost to killer cough syrups. Madhya Pradesh government BJP attacks Stalin government in Tamil Nadu. DMK hits back. Mega huddle as Bihar poll dates near. NDA and Mahagathbandhan discuss seat-sharing formula. Prashant Kishore reveals candidates for 51 seats. Hints at contesting from Raugar. Major win for Kerala government in Munambam Waqf lands controversy. Kerala High Court says Munambam land does not qualify as Waqf land. Upholds Kerala government's decision to form judicial commission. Actor Deepika Padukone raises alarm on film industry's work culture, gender bias, pay disparities, calls for reforms, flexible hours and better support for new mothers in the industry. 41-year-old Punjabi actor Varinder Guman passed away due to heart attack. Was famous as the vegetarian bodybuilder. Yashasvi Jaiswal continues his prolific streak of big scores in Test cricket, hits his 7th Test century on the first day of second Test against West Indies. India charged towards massive total in the first innings. Let's begin with our top focus story. Irked by the Taliban minister's India visit. Now, Pakistan has gone on to launch airstrikes in Kabul, targeting Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan chief Noor Wali Masood. While Masood survived, unfortunately, his son and 30 other civilians have been killed in the explosions. This, remember, follows Pakistan's defense minister accusing Afghanistan of sheltering terrorists, escalating tensions between the two nations. Meanwhile, Afghan Foreign Minister Muttaqi's visit to India has strengthened the bilateral ties between India and Afghanistan, with both sides now reaffirming their commitment to mutual cooperation. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar acknowledged Afghanistan's solidarity during the Pahalgam attack, and India has also confirmed plans to reopen its embassy in Kabul, marking a significant step in diplomatic relations with Afghanistan.
During the American occupation, there was many ups and downs that happened. However, throughout this time, we never gave a statement against India. Rather, we always sought good relations with India.
We have a common commitment towards growth and prosperity. However, these are endangered by the shared threat of cross-border terrorism that both our nations face. We must coordinate efforts to combat terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. We appreciate your sensitivity towards India's security concerns.
ټول مجاهدین ورونو ته السلام علیکم ورحمت الله. د سلام په تحفه وړاندې کولو نه بعد تاسو ته دغه اطمینان درکوم چې الحمدلله موږ روغ رموټ یو بېخي هیڅ مشکل نشته دی او په خپله قبایلي خاوره باندې الحمدلله شتون لرو او د الله په فضل سره هیڅ مشکل نشته دی. د دشمن دغه ټولې پراپیګنډې چې کوي دا ټول دروغ دي، دا ټول بې ځایه خبرې دي. دوی چې مسلمانانو ته کوم تکلیف ورسوي الله پاک ته د دوی مؤاخذه په خپله د مجاهدینو په لاس باندې هم وکړي، په خپله د هم وکړي. والسلام علیکم ورحمت الله وبرکاته.
And Taliban spokesperson Suhail Shaheen told CNN News 18 that they expect the recent engagement with India to become a turning point in bilateral relations. Listen in.
People of Afghanistan, it's people to people, not necessarily recognizing the Taliban regime. How do you see this?
I say the people of Afghanistan in India, they have a traditional relation throughout the history. There was a need to resume that normal and good relation as they had throughout the ages. I expect this visit will become a start point of a new phase of relation between the two countries. And after this, I also expect that there should be a committee to explore various areas of cooperation and strengthening relation.
But Mr. Sohail Shaheen, the other aspect is Bharat was invested heavily in developing infrastructure in Afghanistan, and all of that currently seems stalled. So how do you see this engagement unlocking those doors and those possibilities?
I see, we are regional countries, and there are opportunities in Afghanistan, particularly of investment, and there were projects which the India was working to complete, but they still remaining incomplete. These needs to be resumed, and also as a regional country, we have shared interest in security of the region. We have shared interest in promoting trade and commerce, and there are other areas of cooperation between the two countries. I hope after this visit, it will give impetus to all will give impetus to cooperation in all those areas.
Now, one of the questions and concerns, Sohail Shaheen, is Mr. Sohail Shaheen, is the presence of jihadi tanzeems in Afghanistan. Be it the Tehrik-e-Taliban, Pakistan, Lashkar, Jaish, Al-Qaeda, a lot of them are operating and using Afghan soil. So the issue of security and safety becomes a big question mark. What assurances can you give?
Yeah, sure. There we guarantee full security. We will provide full security, and if you compare the security prevalent in Afghanistan with other countries, the security in Afghanistan is, a better security in the country, and also we provide full security of course, to your projects and to your mission in Kabul.
Let's now get you key takeaways from that meeting between External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and the Afghan Foreign Minister Mr. Muttaqi. So takeaway number one that we learn of is that India is going to be upgrading the Kabul technical mission to a full mission. So that will be something that is in the works now. The other thing that we are learning of from this meeting is that the Afghan government has gone on to invite Indian firms for mining exploration. Remember, as far as the minerals and everything that Afghanistan boasts of, there is an ample amount of invitation that's come in from Afghanistan to go ahead for India, which is welcome on Afghan land to undertake those mining activities. The other thing that we are learning of is Muttaqi saying that they wouldn't allow the use of Afghan land against India. Remember, this particular meeting is at the back of a lot of volatility that we do see between Pakistan and Afghanistan. So this is a clear hint at that. So no Afghanistan land will be ceded or allowed for anything, any activity against India. Both countries will be joining efforts against cross-border terror. On the one hand, there is an accusation that's coming in from Pakistani side of Afghanistan harboring terrorists, a terror nation really accusing Afghanistan for doing that. On the other hand, we see this. Takeaway number 5, India will be issuing higher number of students, also medical visas. So people coming in from Afghanistan will be welcome. Muttaqi also goes on to say that Afghanistan looks at India as a close friend. So remember, these are the key takeaways that we are learning of that has come out from that meeting between EAM and Mr. Muttaqi. We have our colleague Anand Narasimhan who's now joining us on the broadcast. Anand, you just spoke to the spokesperson there, and the one thing that has been underlined is the growing camaraderie, the India-Afghan relationship. All of this at the back of what we see happening between Pakistan and Afghanistan. How does one read this visit?
Well, good afternoon, Griha, and to our viewers. One of the aspects, and we must underline this, is that Bharat is not recognizing the Taliban government in Afghanistan. But Bharat is recognizing that to do any work for the people of Afghanistan, one has to go via the Taliban because they are the ones who are in power, and they've been in power for nearly 4 years now. The other part is that the Taliban establishment itself seems to be settling and also getting a lot of recognition worldwide, because not just the Chinese, the Russians have also engaged with Amir Khan Muttaqi. The Americans are constantly underlining their presence in that region. Pakistan's been engaging, and now Bharat is also engaging, because there are a lot of projects that Bharat had undertaken which were development projects which are stuck. Geopolitically also, the Taliban and the Afghan government and its people are wanting to de-link themselves from Pakistan and from the clutch hold of Rawalpindi and clutches of Rawalpindi. The airstrikes against the TTP that have only showed that Pakistan will use Afghanistan as its backyard, and perhaps the Afghans don't want to be treated like toilet paper. And whatever happens within the Afghanistan as a nation, security and its own defense and its own sovereignty is integral to Afghanistan, irrespective of who's in power there. So somewhere that is being underlined. The other thing is that we are not showing, as India is telling the likes of China and Pakistan and other nations, that our intent there is not military, nor is it loot and plunder. It is a softer presence, because there is a cultural, civilizational connect, and also there is a spiritual and sectoral connect, because most of the Taliban and the Shura follow the Deobandi sect of Islam and Sunni Islam. And Deoband is based in Bharat, and the origins and the roots and moorings are in Bharat. So that's how the reason why Amir Khan Muttaqi is most likely going to Deoband in Uttar Pradesh on Saturday. And he is going to meet with the Deoband ulama. So there are multiple layers to this, only to tell the people that nobody is going to dictate to Bharat how they will engage with Afghanistan, and underlining the fact that it's a people-to-people connection. It is recognizing the importance of having engagement for the betterment of the people of Afghanistan, be it medical help, and also facilitating those who need advanced medical care to Bharat, and also those who want to pursue professional higher studies, technical studies, for them to be able to come to universities here. And also completion of some of the important pending projects that will only eventually benefit the people of Afghanistan and not anybody else. The concern was security, the concern was stability, and somewhere this is an underlining of the fact that Bharat will continuously help and work with the people of Afghanistan to ensure a certain level of stability. The issue of security now becomes paramount, because Pakistan trying to use areas like Nangarhar, Paktika and some of the other areas to train its own jihadis and move them out to escape FATF censure. The Afghanistan government, the Taliban, will slowly try and de-link. There have also been fissures between the Taliban establishment, between the Haqqanis, who are largely from Pakistan, and the Kandaharis, and that's why the Shura and the figureheads sit in Kandahar and not in Kabul. So clearly there is that fissure, and it's only widening, and the Kandahari faction seems to be wanting to take control of the situation and steer things back into the narrative of Afghanistan and not being driven by Pakistan.
Right, absolutely, Anand. In fact, we have got this further information to break down everything that you have mentioned. Another mega exclusive